Hola, mijos. Sorry I couldn't be there this week, but this will be your lesson for, I guess you would consider it your Monday's lesson. So it'll cover everything that you did and learned this week, as well as prepare you for your unit exam that is due Monday, September 11th. Now, if you don't feel comfortable in completing the unit test before the time we meet on Monday afternoon, that's okay. We can meet on Monday afternoon and have a full question answer review period, and then you can take the test after class. All right, so just to review, I'm going to review probably the last maybe 2 weeks that we have met, and then I'll get to the new stuff. But after looking through Odysseyware, there really isn't too much new stuff. It was just more reflexive verb stuff. So first off, I want to remind you what a cognate is. A cognate or cognado is a word in Spanish that looks similar to the English equivalent to it. So that way when you read a paragraph, when you read street signs, you can kind of get the gist of what's going on without being completely fluent in the class. Okay. Basic verb conjugations, you should have learned this in Spanish 1, but we have our AR verbs, we have our ER verbs, and we have our IR verbs. So an example of an AR verb would be bailar, to dance, or cantar, or hablar. An example of an ER verb would be correr, or comer. And some examples of an IR verb would be escribir or abrir. Now, we also talked about the different endings that we add. So you need to determine your subject and add the endings of like o, asa, amosan, according to your subject. But in this unit, we talked about reflexive verbs, and some of you guys, if I recall correctly, already knew about reflexive verbs. They were taught very briefly at the end of Spanish 1 if you went to school in the district. Now, the reflexive verbs are verbs that you do upon yourself, and we talked about brushing our teeth. We talked about combing our hair. That's something we do to ourselves. So with verbs like that, we have these reflexive pronouns. As you see under number 3, it's the me, te, se, nos, and se. Those are reflexive pronouns. So this is how you conjugate a reflexive verb. First off, our verb is bañarse, which means to bathe or to clean yourself up, to take a shower. It's very commonly used in the Spanish-speaking countries rather than to take a shower. So we use bañarse. But to conjugate it, you first, if you look at step number 1, it says rip off the se. So if we have bañarse, we're just left with bañar. So then number 2 says conjugate the verb. So we conjugate the verb just like we learned in Spanish 1. O, asa, amosan, right? Then number 3. So in number 1, we ripped off the se, but we still need it. So in number 3, you go back to it and you need to figure out what your subject was. So if you conjugated bañar to baño, as it says in number 2, your reflexive pronoun will be me. If you conjugated to bañas, your reflexive pronoun will be te. If you conjugated to baña, then it'd be se. If you conjugated it to bañamos, your reflexive pronoun should be nos. Now, I didn't put the vosotros form in here, but if you conjugate it to the vosotros form, which is bañáis, your reflexive pronoun will be os. And then finally, for ellos, ellas, and ustedes, we have bañan, and that reflexive pronoun, again, is se. So once you determine your reflexive pronoun, now it's where you put it. So number 4 says, put the reflexive pronoun in front of the conjugated verb. So we have me baño, which means I bathe, or I bathe myself, either one. Te bañas means you bathe. Se baña means la chica, or the girl, bathes, or the boy bathes. Nos bañamos, which is we bathe. The vosotros form would be os bañáis, and that's you all bathe. And se bañan is they bathe. So I hope you can see it, but up in the left-hand corner, we have the verb vestirse. Now, this one means to dress yourself. So we all get ourselves dressed in the morning. Same concept. You rip off the se, you conjugate the verb, figure out what your reflexive pronoun is, and then you put the reflexive pronoun in the back, in the front. But what's different about this one is that vestirse starts with a VE. However, starting in the yo, tú, él, ella, and usted, and the ustedes form, that E, the VE, changes to a VI. So it's visto, vistes, viste, and visten. Now again, I don't have the vosotros form, but the vosotros form always kind of piggybacks off of like the nosotros form, which there is no change. So it would be vestáis in this section right here for the vosotros. So then that is the only difference. That's why I found it so important to show this one to you, is that VE does change to a VI. Okay. And then just some more review. We have tener, which means to have, and the conjugations are tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, and tienen. Now, if you remember correctly, tener and hacer are both go verbs, and a go verb is that type of verb where the word go actually is part of the yo form. Hacer, again, another go verb, as we see in the yo form, hago. Then it goes to haces, hace, hacemos, hacéis, hacen. Okay, so tener, in addition to being a go verb, is also a stem changing verb. And again, in the vosotros form, there is no stem changing, so it would be tenéis. Now, hacer, it's a go verb, but if you look at all the other verb conjugations, they're completely normal, completely normal. Okay, we also talked about ser in this unit, and that means to be, and it is the permanent to be. So the fact that I'm kind of tall for a girl, I would use ser, I am tall, soy alta. Or the fact that I have, or that I'm brown-headed, if you will, like soy morena. Or if you're a blonde, it would be tú eres tú eres rubio. So these are permanent characteristics that we cannot naturally change. And when I say naturally, it's like you blondes out there, you can dye your hair brown, but that is not natural. So that's kind of the whole permanent concept of this ser issue.